X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. Adam, how are you? Did you have a really normal weekend?
I had a really normal weekend, and I was having a little bit of FOMO because you folks were out in Chicago at C2E2 without me. So how was that?
C2E2 was fun. Had a great time. Chris Claremont's mad at me again. It's fine.
It's really funny that last episode we did talk at length about Claremont's hijinks from the last C2E2, and now immediately
and also his race bending.
Yeah, we basically predicted
folks,
the future.
That was recorded beforehand. So if you had any, listen, I'm not going to get into discourse about this. I just think it's very funny that it happened again.
Yeah. So for listeners who...
I didn't even try this time. I was a mere observer.
Yeah. So for listeners who maybe missed it, check out the Comics XF Twitter account, which has a live account of some of the things that Mr. Claremont said.
Check out Graham McMillan's write-up for Popverse. It's better.
Well, they're both saying the same thing.
They are saying the same thing, one of which was written in 280 character increments as fast as possible, trying to capture all of the madness, and one of them was journalism.
These are two forms of journalism.
I'd argue
you were both doing a great job.
I did get a chance to run into Graham that weekend, and I asked him how his weekend was going, and he looked at me and was like, "Oh, how is your weekend going?" We were both having very normal ones. But it did bring back a memory, Adam.
Which was?
C2E2 2020, the last comic convention.
Yeah, before the pandemic, we all were at the announcement of Ten of Swords, the giant crossover event of all time.
Yeah, we got really excited for Swords. I got to talk to so many people. If you guys haven't, and you want a weird piece of history that I have not gone back and listened to, go back and listen to our 2020 C2E2 episode, where we all get swords. It's a really fun time. We talked to just about everybody involved in Ten of Swords.
At least from the writing side, yeah, for sure.
Oh, we're talking about Ten of Swords today. Sorry if that wasn't clear.
Yes, we're back to being a swords podcast. This is an all-sword episode.
All sword all the time. And that's thanks to Patreon supporter Zach Larkin. Zach went over to patreon.com/comicsxf, reached deep into his heart and in his pocketbook, and said, "Folks, I'd like to toss a couple of coins into your coffers." And that is what Zach has done. Zach is not me. He spells his name differently, but we like him nonetheless. If you want to be like Zach Larkin, do that thing. And hey, if you can't support monetarily and get an episode for your own like this, leave us a rating or a review on iTunes or like a 5-star on Spotify or something. It really helps. Give us good ratings and reviews and just tell us how great this podcast is, how much you love talking about the comics, and how you think all of our bits are really funny and great.
Definitely helps spread the word of the show, and I appreciate that because we're working hard for you folks this week. 31 issues this episode, starting with this 22-part crossover. How do we even get into the giant list of names here on the creative team? This is crazy.
Ten of Swords was spearheaded by Jonathan Hickman and Teenie Howard. They are the architects of the event. But in this event, from the writing side, are Jonathan and Teenie, friend of the show Leah Williams, Ben Percy, Vita Ayala, Zeb Wells, Ed Brisson, Jerry Duggan. That's everybody. It's those people.
I think that's everybody, yeah.
And from an art side, you got some Pepe Larraz.
Got that Pepe.
You got Carlos Gomez. You got Victor Bogdanovic, which fine. Mateo Loli, Carmen Carnero, Rod Reese, Phil Noto, R.B. Silva, Mahmoud Assar, Lanil Francis Yu, Stefano Castilli, Joshua Cassara. think that's everybody.
I think so. What's amazing.
It is everybody. That's everybody.
And some covers by Daughterman.
Daughterman does covers.
Yeah.
What's his name? He's really good. Andy Kubert does some covers.
Yep.
There's covers from a lot of people, guys. Hey, this comic rules.
Well, when you said that someone had requested, I was like, oh man, 22 issues. But as I just said to you off air before we started recording, I was really surprised and enjoying myself in how quickly and smoothly this goes down. This is a lot of fun. And I think for all of the complaining that some folks might have done about the length of the event, because if we recall, this event was not supposed to be 22 parts. And because of pandemic and changing publishing schedules, it was decided that they were going to extend this to a longer. I think it's better for it.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
There is an idea that somebody's first idea, the original plan, is always the best one. And that's stupid if you've ever thought about it. If you've ever thought for a minute about any of your plans in your life, was the first one always the best one? Was a little bit extra time ever beneficial? Did you ever change your mind on something? Because, folks, I gotta tell you, in the creative process, that happens. And when you have a creative process with a lot of people, that can happen. And when they decide, hey, actually, let's take this event and let's split it up and let's have part of the event do the thing that events normally can't do and give you deep character-focused stories so that you feel invested in this. And the other part of the event is let's do sword fights.
Sort of.
Okay, hold on. How many sword fights do you think we get in this book called Ten of Swords?
Well, we definitely get sword fights. I just want to say that, I think what's great about going back to this is not having to listen to some of the issue of the moment reactions when there were things like fashion shows or drinking contests or whatever it was.
There's at
that
least
Saturnine
15
was doing.
sword fights, folks. Over these 22 issues, you're darn near a sword fight an issue, at least.
Oh, for sure. Before we get into the actual story, though, I just want to really, and I could be wrong about this, but just from my general knowledge of comics history, I do think that this is really a highlight because we're talking about this writer room strategy, right? With Hickman as head of X, and you got Teeny co-piloting this event. Because a lot of this, we got to make sure when we talk about the story that a lot of this is really coming out of the pages of Excalibur, as we mentioned when we interviewed Teeny years ago. But this is a true test of this style of writing that is much more television based. And having everybody in the room, having everybody have input on the story at large, but then giving parts of that story to individuals. And in this particular case, giving some writers an opportunity to write books that they don't normally write so that they have an opportunity to tell those stories with those characters. And I have to give props to them because if you think about the sheer number of people that are involved in this event, the sheer number of issues that were involved in publishing this, the editing, getting this out month to month or week to week, right? Because this was coming out weekly. It is an amazing accomplishment. And it is unique, I think. This is the part where I could be wrong, but it feels very unique in the history of comic book crossovers. Especially when you look back at X-Men crossovers, to say that this many people were involved and they stuck the landing.
I can't think of anything this big in this tight of a time frame. Like there's things like DC's 52, which was a writer's room, but it was more, here's 4 people who are going to write 4 intersecting stories, kinda, and they're going to come out weekly, and it's a different beast than, hey, here's your big event. Here is all your tie-ins. Here is everything. And, oh, by the way, it's not like a normal event comic or a traditional event comic nowadays where it is you get a chunk of issues from one person and then everything else is like dancing between the raindrops. These are 22 sequential issues and also 2 lead-in issues that set the stage for some of the other books. There is a lot going into these comics. A lot going into these comics. It's epic in the truest sense of the word that this is a big event. We say 22 issues. I'd say at least a quarter of these are oversized, if not bigger.
Sure. Yeah, because remember that we've got the 2 bookends, Creation and Destruction, and then we have a middle issue called Stasis, which Pepe is doing each one of those. And a lot of the other issues are longer than they normally might be in general.
X-Factor is, Marauders is, I think some of the Excalibur is.
Yeah, it's also really interesting going back and seeing what the status quo was at the time and how this resets some of the status quo for what the Krakoan era is going to be moving forward.
I was going to say, because what this event does in reality is a couple of things. One, it tells the best apocalypse story that has ever been told in a way that is truly confounding to me, a guy who has said before all of this, yeah, Apocalypse is a pretty bad character when you come down to it. He was just in Age of Apocalypse.
Well, Apocalypse is always a character where his power set has been ill-defined, his motivations are ill-defined, and, aside from Fall of the Mutants, he's not really a very engaging character. He's more engaging in what the effects are of what he does than what he's out to do. And the fact that this approaches the character in such an interesting way to say that not only does he have a motivation, but we're going to kind of retcon what that expectation was, and we're going to spin it so that it's about like his family, right? Like we're going to say that he has that he has a wife, that Apocalypse is a wife guy. We're going to say that his children are the original Horsemen, and give this entire mythological background to why Apocalypse believes survival of the fittest. And it is so smart. It is such an intelligent thing to do, to say that he is basically doing what he's doing so that Earth can be ready for the destruction coming from Amenth. That's a huge, smart endeavor.
There's that moment in X-Men 13, which is right before our mid-break of the series. It's an Apocalypse Spotlight issue. It gives you some background on his family, on Ayako and Krakoa, and, Okara, the One Land, before it was split by the Twilight Sword of the Enemy. And there is a beautiful scene where his family is going to defend against Amenth. And Genesis looks at Apocalypse. Genesis is Apocalypse's wife. Genesis looks at Apocalypse, and he's asking why he can't go. And she looks at him, the big, strong baddie of the X-Men, and she says, "You're not strong enough."
And you know it. Like, she is...
And she says it with, kindness and sweetness, and your heart breaks for Apocalypse, a man who is a genocidal monster? Apocalypse, traditionally not good, and you're like, oh, I love him.
Yeah.
I care for you now, Apocalypse. Please, come into my warm embrace, Apocalypse.
Yeah, I mean, by the time you get to the end, and I do want to highlight that final issue when we get to it, but and he takes on the mask of annihilation and, surrenders so that he can save the lands and rescue Ayako. It is just... There's an emotional arc here that, has never been understood about this character and is done incredibly well throughout. And he's not the only one getting the arcs,
Well,
as we go.
Can I go back to that ending moment just for a minute here?
Yeah.
Because I think it's the best way you could have told this story. It's incredible because it is not about strength. Apocalypse's entire thing has been survival of the fittest, only the strong. We must be the most fit. And he does not win. Krakoa does not win through strength. It wins through surrender. It wins because he is opening himself up to peace and saying, I will not fight. I will hold my ground, and I will stand here firm and give myself over to whatever comes next.
Yeah.
And it is a very touching story when so much of this era has been about the folly of false posturing of strength and the folly of great men. And you see, the great man, the fittest of Krakoa, just prostrate out there. He is... Oh, it's beautiful. It is beautiful.
Yeah, and, while we're basically concentrating so far on the Apocalypse arc, because there are 22 issues, you really have a chance to explore all of these great things. Wolverine gets a really nice arc with the solemn stuff, even though that's probably not my favorite part. Storm has a great issue by Vita. You get the rock slide stuff so that we discover you can't die in Otherworld and get reborn.
Betsy and Cable have an incredible arc each of themselves.
Yeah. Just rereading this, I really miss Zeb Wells' Hellions book, because those issues where they send Sinister and the Hellions to cheat, and it does not go the way anybody planned. It is fantastic.
Those issues are really fun. I would say, because I don't want us to sound like we are being just not pointing out any of the flaws. If there is anything that feels like it is a tie-in versus a part of the story, it's the Hellions ones, but they get over that because they're so freaking good.
Yeah, I mean, if I want to be critical, I think that there are definitely parts where, if you're looking at the story as a whole, and we're not even talking like issue to issue, there's definitely places where you could edit down parts of the story. The banquet definitely didn't feel like it needed to be 2 issues. I don't feel like the back-to-back Wolverine stuff in the beginning needs to be 2 issues. However, that being said, I still think that given the enormity of the task in hand, that it's really amazing what they are able to do. And I will say that, especially in that back half, some of the artistic achievements on this are just fantastic. Just the 2 back-to-back Josh Cassara issues alone are so beautifully rendered with Guru FX's coloring. They're absolutely magnificent and hilarious and strange. We're seeing the X-Men and their counterparts from Ayako being asked to, avoid going to have sex with a rock, arm wrestle, fashion show, and you get, there's a sense of humor to the event, but there's also this brutality to what is going on as well that is really interesting and fun.
And I think that gets underscored at the end with especially the Cable story, where he gets beat by Doug's large wife. We will get to the Sword Bearers of Morocco soon enough, because we haven't even finished my first point. That's where we're at. But he is brutally beaten down by this. Like, he is just devastated. Betsy is shattered. Like, it is a lot of intentional tonal whiplash. It wants you to feel off guard, because that's what Saturnine is doing. She is using her magical whims to keep things unsteady. She wants them going in thinking that they are just going to be a sword fight. And no, it's a whole other contest. She does not say once that there is going to be a sword fight contest. She says there is going to be a tournament and you're going to need some swords.
Right. They have to be sword bearers, or in the case of Pog or Pog, you have to be a sword.
She is being tricksy, which is what fairy magic is. Like, this is an otherworld story. I can't like look at this and say, "Oh, you're not following the rules you set up for this universe." No, you set up magical fairyland, and you said the fairies are going, and you made the fairies trick us.
This is very important to note as well, is that, and it's not just Teeny, but Teeny is the main architect of what this current iteration of Otherworld is. And
you mean how Otherworld's good now?
Yeah, and all of its lands and all of its rulers and what the map of it looks like and how the politics work and all of this stuff, which I find fascinating. It's one of the reasons that I'm disappointed that Knights of X is ending so soon is because I am fascinated by the way that this is being constructed and explored. I feel like readers of the X line are not as enamored with it as I am. But here especially, it is fantastic. You've got lands of fairies. You've got lands of vampires. you've got
you got a whole
Jim Jasper's
land
Crooked
of the Fury.
Market.
You got a B land that we still don't know what's up with that.
Right. And it's all there for the exploration. So
you got the Blight Smoke.
The Blight Spoke.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. The other big thing that this does is it establishes so much more. It essentially has to do what House of X did and establish a new status quo, but it has to do that for multiple different things. It has to establish this is what Otherworld is now, and it's a lot bigger and a lot weirder, and most importantly, this is Arakko. Right. These are the people of Arakko. This is what they've been fighting for, and these are going to be incredibly key players for the next little bit. Like, the spoilers, but that X-Men Red issue of Judgment Day, that wasn't going to hit unless Ten of Swords hit. And Ten of Swords hit. Because
we have to care.
You get so many, because you spend the first half of this book spending time with these characters, understanding what they want, what they need, what their deal is. You feel very connected to this smaller team, not to mention feeling connected to the brand new sword bearers of Arakko, who all rule. There is not a loser in the bunch. They made 10 new dope characters. We're doing 10 of these. They all rule.
It doesn't hurt that Pepe did the designs, but I mean, from Bay...
The Pepe Larraz designs.
Yeah, from to Iska the Unbeaten, which is just, again and again, proving to be such a fascinating idea for a character. It gets you every time. You're like, yeah, she can't be beaten, can she? She just can't lose. So how does that figure into each story from here on out? And it's been a really fun ride. You get Pog or Pog. You get White Sword. Mm-hmm. You get a new War in Death who are good, actually. Yeah. Summoner, who I hate. He's just such a jerk, and he does deserve to die. I'm glad he got a sword in his face. You get Solemn, who is... Listen, when they said, oh yeah, Ben Percy's going to give Wolverine his own Loki, I was like, Benjamin? Sure. No, Solemn rules. Solemn's good every time he shows up. Red Root, I want them to bring Red Root back because I think she's a very interesting character. You get Pog or friggin' Pog. Just the idea that we're flipping the coin and seeing this war-torn version of what Krakoa could be. If they had lived in this hellscape for eons, right? But it's smart enough not to just be a carbon copy. So we get the characters that are the counterparts, but those counterparts are not just mirror images. This is a much smarter story than that. Throughout this, there are such very intelligent and smart little character moments. Stupid things like Magic not knowing how to spell magic. No, she spells magic like her name. Exactly. She's like, M-A-J-I-K. G-I-K. Duh, magic. What? Right. But no, I was just going to say, there's those kind of things are sprinkled throughout here, whether it's, Ororo going to Wakanda to get her sword or, just one moment after another that really feed into who these characters are and that these writers and these artists really understand who they are. Here's the thing. I think there are issues that you could bring up to say, well, if they were just going to tell this in 120, the size of 22 issues, and not as a sequential medium of here's one issue and then the next and then the next, and each one needs to feel like a bite-sized chapter and fit everything into that chapter and not leave loose ends moving to the next one, which they more or less do. Each issue can be mostly self-contained. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's stuff that continues on, but they stay very tight. Mm-hmm. There's things you can say, well, if you cut a little bit, 10 pages over here and put them over to this scene, maybe it's more effective. Sure. We're picking nits here because this works as a 22-issue story. It works as sitting down and reading this whole thing. You get a lot of, I don't want to say slowness, but you get a lot of contemplative
character beats in the first half and then straight up all out action in the back half.
And
a lot.
I just want to highlight, I spoke about it a lot at the time, but when Destruction came out, that is an artistic achievement on its own. I mean, Pepe Larraz gets a chance to do this oversized issue where he is drawing the forces of Amenth, the sword bearers of Ayako, all a huge swath of the X-Men cast. He gets a chance to draw these aliens that then pop in. He gets a chance to draw the Cthulhu monsters coming from the Summoners, all of the otherworld creatures that are here. And it is staggering to see what he is capable of doing. Now, he's just recently been announced that he is going to go get that Netflix money with Mark Miller.
Listen, get your money, Pepe. Get your money, Pepe.
Get your money, Pepe. But I have to be a little bit disappointed that he's leaving the franchise because what he brings to it is so unique and amazing. So if you have never read Ten of Swords, I highly recommend it. And, if you're only going to own one issue, I'd say make sure you at least get Destruction because it's a work of art.
It's incredible. There's just so much. Hey, do you remember the pop at the end of Creation? When I first read Creation, it was a rough day. A lot of my friends were having a rough day. We read it, and I got to that last page. I got to the last page that I should have known what was coming. It's when they reveal that also there's Sword, the space station, involved in this.
Yes.
And it says, and raise your sword. And then the space station sword shows up. And I jumped out of my seat. And I was like, yeah, let's go. I don't even like Sword. But I was so hyped by that issue. Because this entire story just builds up your excitement for it.
Yeah, and it pays off because at the very end, Sword docks with the Starlight Citadel, and you're like, what is going on? This is so crazy. All right, so I think you and I both really enjoy this. I don't think this is recency bias. I think this is a huge achievement, and I want to take a look at our big old list and see if we can rank it.
Okay, because what we do on this podcast is we rank all of the X-Men stories from best to worst, with the best X-Men story of all time being the House of X, Powers of 10. There are 672 stories on the list, by the way. The 100th best story is Fallen Angels, the one with the lobsters. The 200th best story is Extraordinary X-Men 17. That's the good issue of Extraordinary X-Men. Number 300 is the Madrox miniseries. Number 400 is The Saga of Chris Starr, the Crystal Warrior, number 6. That's a Nightcrawler appearance. Number 500 on this list is New Mutants 1 through 4, The Return of the Legion. Number 600 on this list is X Factor 1 through 6, a Bat Apocalypse story. And 672 is the Draco. I'm going to say something, Adam, and I want you to listen.
Yeah, let's go.
This is the best X-Men crossover that's ever existed.
Yeah, immediately I'm looking in the top 25 here. 25 right now is Cullen Bunn's first 3 issues of Magneto. And as we get into the top 25, we have several different X-Men crossovers. The Mutant Massacre is at 24. Messiah Complex is at 16. Messiah Complex is probably the biggest equivalent that I can think of major number of writers and artists coming together on a book in a successful fashion. This is more successful than that. So we're definitely in the top 15.
I would say very specifically the art and the consistency, this consistent quality of the art in Ten of Swords is ridiculously high. Even the Victor Bogdanovich stuff, who I don't like Victor very much as an artist, that's the worst that it gets. And it's still pretty good. He's not drawn bad.
So that aside, we're working our way up the list, and I think that, we could be in the top 10. I don't know. Is this better than E for Extinction at 9?
That's a tough one for me.
Okay. 10 and 11 are the two Paul Smith / Walt Simonson era, right? We've got the Morlocks at 10, and we've got Wolverine's Wedding at 11.
And we have the Crucible at 12.
Yes, we have the Crucible X-Men 7. This is better than the Crucible for me, I think.
I would say the scope of this is better than the Crucible, and that comes down to just like I complain about stories being too long constantly on this podcast.
Yep.
These are 22 good issues though. Like that's the thing. 7 bad issues in a row, miserable to read. 22 good issues, especially once the plot is ramping up in the back half of this. That thing flies. I'm engaged. I want to see what's happening next. And I've read it multiple times.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, what is the ceiling? Because once we start to get into the top 10, this is not going to challenge, I think, things like number 6 is God Loves, Man Kills. 7 is Asgardian Wars. 8 is the Frank Miller, Chris Claremont Wolverine mini. And then 9 is E is for Extinction. I can definitely see this challenging those Paul Smith era books at 10 and 11. I guess my ceiling, I don't know. I can't see putting it above number 6, God Loves, Man Kills.
I don't see it going above God Loves, Man Kills.
No.
I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna sound odd, and I want you to hear me out, Adam.
All right, go for it.
I don't know if it's better than the Frank Miller Claremont Wolverine or E is for Extinction or Asgardian War, but I do know I would rather read it again than 2 out of 3 of those stories, probably.
It's right up there with them. I mean, I think we're talking about classics versus something that is extraordinarily successful in the modern era. So I think the real question here is whether this is at number 10 or whether this is at number 9. Because I think we're in agreement that this is going to surpass those
We are, yeah. It's
X-Men 169 to 173. So, we've already established time and time again that Wolverine mini establishes that character in a way that it just solidifies it for decades. So I think that's got the advantage. But I guess the question is the redefinition of X-Men by Grant Morrison still a bigger landmark than the artistic and writing accomplishment that is this enormous story? And I think it is. I think if I was thinking about this logically, I would slot this in at number 10.
I think that's right. I'm just mad that Astonishing X-Men Gifted is at number 5. We need to edit our list.
Okay. Well, let's edit
Adam,
it.
Hold on. Adam, I'm gonna throw an audible at you.
Ooh. Okay.
You want to slide Astonishing X-Men Gifted down to like between Messiah Complex and Dark Angel Saga?
We're doing this right now. We should not do this
show.
right now. We should not do this right now.
We should.
Here's why we shouldn't do this. Is because this
it's going to set a bad precedent.
It's not. Here's why I'm saying this, because this is not the only story that needs to be moved. We need to come up with a better way to do this than just an audible.
We do need to come up with a better way to do this. We did miss a nice round number. Adam, let's you and I figure out off air, and we'll cut this part. Let's figure out when we re-edit our pod.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do the list.
We're gonna take a day. We're gonna take an episode, and you and me are gonna have to do some bonus reading / skimming on some stuff to refresh, so we're good. But then we're gonna each get to pick a few that we can debate about re-ranking.
Yeah, I have some ideas on how we could do that.
Let's talk about it off air.
Yeah, but for now,
Adam, I think what I think is you're probably right. E is for Extinction matters more and is still incredibly good. So I think 10 of Swords can rightly fit in the 10 spot.
Great. All right.
Here's the thing about 10 of Swords is that they do the thing where the X is a 10 and it's also a tarot card.
Yeah. The tarot. We all started reading the tarot because of this crossover.
I refuse. Here's what I know about tarot. I know that death is not really death. The 10 of Swords is really death. And the Fool is the lead of the tarot.
There you go. All right, that was our episode this week. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Oh, wait.
No. We have more. Oh my gosh, Adam, how long did we go on? We did go a good 35 minutes.
That's okay, because these other two stories we don't have as much to say about. And the second one is going to be the 4-issue miniseries, The Rise of Apocalypse.
Yeah, this is from 1996. It's by Terry Kavanagh. James Felder helps out, and Adam Polina. He does some of that good art in this.
Is it? Is it?
That's a great question. That's a great question, Adam. I'm so glad you bring it up. Maybe?
Huge part of whether you're going to like Rise of Apocalypse is going to depend on whether you can handle page after page after page of Adam Polina drawing human beings and their heads that look like pencil erasers. So
do you not like Adam Polina?
Adam Polina on X-Force is a very different animal than what we're looking at in these issues. This is really like super stylized, even more so than his X-Force run. Wouldn't you agree?
This is stylized. It's weird.
It's very weird.
This is the original origin of Apocalypse. So this is before he met. He went to Krakoa or Oaka, the One Land. This is before all of that. This is just when he was in Egypt, back in what we generally call Egypt times.
Yes, a.k.a. Fantastic Four number 19, when Rama Tut ruled the land.
It is during the reign of Rama Tut, the famous pharaoh. Hey, can I tell you one thing that really immediately bothers me about this?
That the Fantastic Four appear with no editor's note, and I had to look up what was going on?
No, because if you are you should know. You should know. Did you not? Hold on, Adam, did you not know Rama Tut's deal? When they were like, this is Rama Tut, you were like, oh yeah, I know that guy, that's Kang.
No, didn't
That's Immortus.
Didn't register. Nope.
Did you didn't know? Okay, because this book does go in assuming they're like, Kang's deal, right, folks?
No,
like
they
you
do
remember
not.
That classic story?
They do not explain it at all. They are basically like a sphinx fell from the sky, and you're like, oh, okay. So if you don't know the Kang
that's Kang's
stuff,
ship.
right? If you don't know that this is Nathaniel Richards, you gotta look it up because you're gonna be very confused.
This isn't a spoiler, folks. Just go read
this is 60s
1963's Fantastic Four 19. So Kang, as Rama Tut, is Pharaoh. His advisor is Ozymandias, as well as Ozymandias' sister, Nefari, and their advisor, Logos. Rama Tut becomes Pharaoh. Ozymandias is trying to politically maneuver all this stuff. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, quick question for you.
Yeah, okay.
Logos, Ozymandias, Nefri. What do you think the etymology of those names are?
I mean, one would hope that they would be from some sort of Egyptian history. I don't
Those
know.
are all Greek, buddy. Those are all Greek.
Okay.
Logos. Logos, the word. Ozymandias, the Greek name for Ramses II, who, by the way, Ramses II was from like 300-ish BC, not 3000-ish.
So you're saying we're making some apocryphal decisions here in terms of the historical context of this story.
I also understand that the word apocalypse is Greek, and I understand that Arabic likely wasn't the Arabic we know to translate into Ansaba Nur in 3000 BC. But they are way off with the Greek names. Like, that's not even close. There's already a very famous Ozymandias in Egypt. His name was Ramses. We've all read Watchmen. We know this.
I think that you are assuming that Kavanagh's writing is smarter than it is. It is not.
I assume that Terry Kavanagh is writing for people who have read Watchmen.
Maybe. I mean, here's the bottom line. This is a very dumb story. Apocalypse really doesn't have much to do. It really doesn't explain much more than, hey, this is Apocalypse, and he used to live in Egypt. And at the end,
Apocalypse was
Ozymandias
a baby.
Right. A blue baby.
Got thrown into
baby.
the desert. Mm-hmm. Everyone was scared. Everyone was scared of his skin. Also, Baal, it's Baal, is, again, not Egyptian. That's very famously a Canaanite name. That's the name of the Canaanite god of the harvest. Baal.
Okay. I don't know. Sure.
Adam. This was all covered in what the Christians call the Old Testament.
The larger issue here is just that nothing happens. There is no character arc. Apocalypse does eventually, I guess, take power. Great. He becomes a big guy. He becomes
his dad
big
dies,
guy.
and he fights Ozymandias because he can't fight Ramatut because the Fantastic Four have to fight Ramatut.
Right, and
that all has to happen off screen.
Right, which is really dumb. So Ozymandias gets turned into stone, and our story is over, and it's not very good. It does not substantiate 4 solid issues, and I do not like the artwork. By the time we get to the end, I believe we got some fill-ins going on here too, so we're not even being consistent.
Yeah, a little bit. Anthony Williams jumps in for Adam Polina at some points.
Yeah, so the style is as weird as it is, doesn't match up at the end, and ultimately this is very disappointing. You know, if you were coming to this and saying, "Oh, I'd really like to learn more," this doesn't tell you a damn thing. 1 issue of Ten of Swords tells you much more about Apocalypse and his history than this ever could.
Yes, because this posits that all Apocalypse is an angry man who's mad that people rejected him because
he's ugly.
Kind of ugly.
They keep talking about how ugly he is, and I'm like, he just looks like he's got lipstick on. Like, why do we care?
Listen. Apocalypse in this first one, he's just got like Jason Momoa hair.
Yeah.
And he's got like a little Apocalypse line on his lips and gray skin. He does not he's ripped. He is not a grotesque being.
No,
he's just a big dude with a sword.
Yeah, like if they were making the movie of this, The Rock could play him, and that'd be fine. You know what I mean?
I was saying that he was going for a Conan vibe, but then I did remember that Jason Momoa did play Conan the Barbarian.
So I don't think this is very good, and I don't have anything else really to say about it. So do you want to try ranking it?
This is not as good as The Further Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, which is a different Apocalypse origin story.
Oh, no, that's much better. I was all the way down at 520, The Search for Cyclops.
Yeah, this is worse than The Search for Cyclops. This is worse than Apocalypse versus Dracula.
It is. Yeah, at least that tried to make some clever things happen.
Yeah, I think that's at 550.
Maybe. Nah, is this worse than The Blood of Apocalypse? X-Men 182 to 187?
Well,
yeah.
No, actually. Blood of Apocalypse is really bad, too.
It is bad, but there's some better stuff than that down here, I think. Like, I feel like this is lower. I don't think we're lower than 575.
The Gladiator arc of New Mutants, yeah.
We're on par with the Sabretooth Mystique mini at 573.
I don't think this is as good as 571, The Winding Way. That's that Nightcrawler story that we did from his solo not that long ago.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's more
that
fun.
one was trying to do more. This is also not as good as Quest Probe.
All right.
You know what? I'd say make this the new 575 between Wisdom Max and the Gladiators arc.
I mean, that's saying something. I think Wisdom Max is better than this. So this is our new
No, that's
5.
what I was saying, yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, you know how much I hate Wisdom Max. So 5.
You don't care for Wisdom Max.
Or Wisdom Regular. All
what
right,
about Diet Wisdom?
Wisdom Clear.
Wisdom Zero.
Jesus Christ. All right, so...
Wisdom Baja Blast.
We had some more Apocalypse there. We had some more swords, but we have one...
Wisdom Code Red.
Now you're just naming Mountain Dews.
Wisdom Zero Sugar. What was the Mountain Dew that they advertised by saying, "It's not for women"?
Oh.
No, that was a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, it was like... What was that? That was very short-lived. That didn't last long.
In 2011 when it launched... Oh, it was called Dr. Pepper 10. It's not for women.
That's so weird. Like, it was their response to Coke Zero, remember? 10 calories.
But how in the world is your ad campaign for a diet soda, "It's not for women"?
It's misogynist pepper. The doctor got...
Jeez.
Yeah. So which made-up soda brand is the Muramasa Blade?
Oh, that's a great question. And the Muramasa Blade is Tab. Liz, the only Tab drinker I know. I am sorry.
You can't drink Tab anymore. They don't make it.
You can't drink Tab anymore, and you can't get a Muramasa Blade anymore because Muramasa's been dead for years and years. We were talking about this other time that Wolverine got the Muramasa blade, and that's Wolverine Volume 3, number 36 through 40. It's called Origins and Endings. This is the fallout from House of M. And you might think, well, Wolverine's a mutant. I wonder if he's dealing with some of the issues that mutants are facing at this time, like the decimation.
Nope, he is not. He is, reeling from the fact that in House of M, he has regained all of his memories. Literally all of his memories.
He remembers being a dainty little boy.
Yes. So the trade dress of this is similar to Wolverine Origins, or Origin, excuse me. We get these Joe Quesada covers that are also evocative of that miniseries, but the interiors are by Daniel Way, and the penciling. This is an interesting art combo. We've pencils and breakdowns by Javier Salteras, but then we get finishes by Mark Teixeira. Now, if Teixeira had just done this by himself, I think it probably would have been much more dynamic, but unfortunately, Salteras' stuff is a little more static, and nothing really happens in these issues, unfortunately. This is very slow storytelling for something that should be a very dynamic story about a soul-stealing sword maker.
Yeah, so this is a 5-issue series. And what you learn in the first issue is that Wolverine has regained all his memories, and so many government agencies are afraid. And that page is good, actually. Yes. That page where there's government agencies who are committing suicide and shredding documents and going crazy because they realize that Wolverine has all of his memories back, and each of them bespoke no one horrible thing they've done to him, and that's enough.
It is pretty funny. Unfortunately, the bulk of this story is really about the Winter Soldier, because the Winter Soldier assassinated a wife of Wolverine that we'd never heard of before this arc. Itsu.
This may be the fastest fridging I've ever seen.
It's rough.
It's like, I didn't even know I had a wife. She's dead. Oh, Daniel Way, you are a bad writer on this one.
And readers,
everything else I've read from you, to be honest.
Yeah, and readers who never read this arc may have been confused when this got brought up again in 10 Lives of Wolverine. Was it X Lives or 10 Lives?
10 Lives, X Deaths.
Yeah.
The thing about it coming up in 10 Lives of Wolverine, a series that I would call uneven. If it was on this list, it would be in the uneven section of the list. The thing about that is that changes it so that Wolverine had just had sex with Omega Red before Jinsu got shot.
It's really weird,
which is
right?
better.
Yeah. Yeah. Bless Percy and Cassara for that. So
what a wild story that one was.
Yeah, so people who might be going back, as I was, going back to this arc, assuming that it is going to be much more of an explanation of the Muramasa Blade, it is not. That is really relegated to almost one issue and another page or two and another issue with a flashback. And the bulk of it is just conversations with Bucky or running from S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's not very good.
Wolverine finds out that in his past, sometime after World War II, maybe?
Sure.
Let's say after World War II. Wolverine, it has to be, because Bucky's the Winter Soldier.
Right.
Sometime after World War II, Wolverine goes to this Japanese village where he's supposed to learn peace. It's in the Jasmine Falls of Honshu. And Wolverine trains in this village, and there's supposed to be like a final competition to show that he is at peace with himself and that he is in control. And then there's a big explosion, and he freaks out for a second and pops his claws just reflexively. Doesn't hurt anybody, no one's around, but he gets shunned and say that he has been disgraced and he is not an honorable Ronin. He is a Gaijin. Like, it is.
He does cut a dude, like, pretty bad. Cuts a dude.
He's fine. He's fine. There was an explosion.
No, I know.
That wasn't his fault.
No, and the circumstances around this are very silly. Like, they're supposed to be like play dancing, fighting around a fire.
It's a dance fight.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's not capoeira. It's just dance fighting that they're doing. So he then finds out that Itsu his wife was shot and killed by Bucky. He later learns, he doesn't know it's Bucky at the time, he just knows that she's been killed, and that it was supposed to lead Wolverine out for reasons.
I guess.
We find out later Romulus is involved, it doesn't matter.
No, and again, this is all dumb, because when they confront each other, they don't really fight. Bucky is able to, knock Wolverine out pretty easily, and there's no real action happening here. It's a lot of Wolverine just running around and or laying down. And the story ends with him going back and getting the Muramasa blade.
From Muramasa.
There's not a ton of exposition here to explain why or what this is all about, and it just ends.
Muramasa says that I will take all of your anger and your rage, and I will forge it into a blade that will even hurt you. And then he's given a sword, and it says, "To be continued in Wolverine Origins #1." And okay. I'm like, screw you.
Yeah, why not just do this story in that book if this is like, its own thing? But as you noted before we went on the air, this book was just moving from arc to arc to arc. And right after this, it gets right into Civil War. So doesn't really have time to... let me rephrase that. It has plenty of time to tell more story. It chooses not to. Yeah.
It does not use the form well.
No, it does not. Now, I do have a soft spot for Teixeira, especially from his 90s Ghost Rider days. Unfortunately, like I said, the artwork is a little more static because he's not the one doing the core work. He's doing the finishes. It does still look pretty nice. I do have a fondness for what Teixeira's line quality is, but this is a bad story. So
I think Teixeira's stuff is nice. I think everything else is pretty bad, actually.
Yeah. So all the way down at 584, we have a story from Wolverine Origins, which is 37 to 40, which is the Romulus arc. Is this better or worse than that?
Jeez. I mean...
I think it looks better, but it's pretty dry. There's not a lot happening here.
See, I don't know if it looks better or not. Like... it's just about on par with that story.
Yeah.
It's less stupid than Romulus. Like, it's dumb in the fact that Wolverine's wife gets fridged again, as happens every time that Wolverine falls in love. That's dumb and bad, and, it should have been like, come on, guys, can we, at least for Wolverine, can we do a different story? Have someone else's wife get fridged for once to give him more motivation than this.
Sure.
But they don't. It's about at that level. I don't know if it's better or worse. It's better than Wolverine, right below that Wolverine 49, Better to Give, which is a Christmas issue. This is, you know what I'm going to say? This isn't as good as Smokescreen.
Oh, the PSA comic from a couple weeks ago? I would agree.
But probably better than X-Men Noir.
Yeah, I have a real distaste for those two noir books. So this will be our new 587.
This will be our new 587. It's origins and endings, and this podcast is ending, at least for this episode.
Yeah, I think our swords have gotten dull, so
my sword never dulls. I have just chosen to put it back in its scabbard and choose peace.
We are sheathing our blades.
I'm like Usagi Yojimbo, Miyamoto Usagi, the best swordsman in comics.
Yeah, he's a bunny.
The Wandering Ronin. Yeah, I'm like him in that, Adam. I want to walk the path of the righteous man and the path of peace, but these devils, they do come at me, and I am forced to defend my honor and the honor of the people around me, and make the bandits do that thing where Stan Sakai draws a little skull in a word balloon floating up from a dead guy's head. That's what I have to do every day of my day-to-day life.
Man, one day when you do your Usagi Yojimbo podcast, it's going to be a real treat. I look forward to that.
Here, let's rank Usagi Yojimbo. It's all a tie.
Number one.
That's not true. It's just like, it would be one where there's not a bad story. They're all good. Number one is Grass Cutter. The problem with Grass Cutter being number one related to this episode is that I understand that Grass Cutter is a sword from Japanese mythology, and that is why it exists in Ten of Swords. But also, every time Gorgon uses Grass Cutter, which he also used in Hickman's Secret Warriors... actually, I'm sorry. Gorgon used God Killer, and Grass Cutter was used by... Wait, no, did Gorgon use Grass Cutter or God Killer? No, Gorgon used God Killer, and Phastos, Ares' son, the God of Fear, used Grass Cutter.
In Secret Warriors.
In Secret Warriors.
Okay.
A book we are not
gotcha.
talking about. It is not an X-Men book.
Fair enough.
I should reread Secret Warriors. I got mad at the ending of it the first time I read it.
I think you're good.
I don't know. The part where Gorgon and Phobos, I said Phastos, Phobos fight, that part does rule super hard.
See, there's goods to be had with Gorgon, you know? He's not just all enemy of the state.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's the Gorgon rules, and I'm glad that they found a way to fix Gorgon so that he's not a Nazi anymore.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
They were like, if Gorgon won the X-Men vote, the important thing that would happen in X-Men number 13 was them saying he's very clearly not a Nazi anymore. We're getting this out of the way right now. That guy tried to have sex with a rock in Otherworld and did fight just a lot of the White Sword soldiers to even up the score.
He wins the tournament. You know, he
didn't win. He tied it up, and then he ties it up, and then White Sword walks up to him and says, "You fought well. I can heal you. You can join my legion." And he says, "No." He says, "Very well," and he stabs him. Jeez, White Sword. Where is White Sword in his 100?
Well, they're not 100 anymore. So
well, no, he's going to get new warriors. That's what he does. He's going to heal his warriors every night. That's what the White Sword does. And they held back the beasts of Ameth.
They're
back in Ameth holding back the beasts. No,
Hey.
I mean, that's a good question. What's Apocalypse and his family doing over there?
Don't know. When we find out, it's going to be real interesting because they're going to come back at some point.
It's going to be so good.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
If you were to have told me in 2018, Zach, Apocalypse is going to go away for a while, and you're going to be so excited for him to come back.
You'd be like, no.
Oh, man. Comics are good, actually, Adam. That's what I've come down on, is that comics books, they did them good.
I think we like
and
those.
If you want to support good comic books, be like Zach Larkin and support us writing about good comic books on ComicsXF at Patreon/ComicsXF. The line has rarely been shorter if you want to get an episode, so jump on in here and we can get you in. We're in less than 6 months.
Okay.
We can get you pretty promptly. Get going. Tell your friends about this podcast. Other things that people say. Adam, what do you got going on today?
Folks, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. And next week, Zach, what are we talking about?
We're going to talk about The Fool. That is Nathan Christopher Charles Dayspring Escanison Summers. Specifically, the time he was a Jack Kirby character, and it ruled.
All right.
Until then, folks, this has been Battle of the Atom, and we hope you survived the experience.